Hello, everybody. I am here today with Maria, who is a well-known horse trainer and also happens to hold a doctorate in clinical psychology. She has a training barn in beautiful Hunterdon County, New Jersey, and has been helping people with their horses for 20 years. Her work takes her abroad often, but in this time in quarantine, she's been at home in New Jersey, which has given her time to reflect upon her business and brings her here with us today. So welcome, Maria. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you for having me, Natalie.
My pleasure. So I wanted to talk with you about how you're adjusting your business during the quarantine. I can imagine it's affected you greatly. Can you tell us a little bit about what business was like before the quarantine, what business has been like since the quarantine, and what special rules you have to abide by in New Jersey?
So, boy, what a life change.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I have to say, to begin with, that I was grateful before for the clients that I have in-house. In my training barn, I may travel and clinic elsewhere, and I have an equine family around the world. My primary home being here, the people that are here with me, I always appreciated them, but boy, do I appreciate them that much more as a result of all the restrictions and quarantine and everything.
Sure.
It's kind of a selective breeding, so to speak, because what's ultimately happened is that the people that are here are meant to be here for me, and the people that didn't, they very early in the quarantine would have left. So I'm so grateful for my in-house guys, because they've been amazing. So I have to say that pre-COVID-19, I had a great equi family in-house. Present COVID-19, I have a great in-house family because with each of the, I don't know, you're in Pennsylvania there, Natalie. For us in New Jersey, it's been interesting, the evolution and the escalation of the restrictions and the adjustments that we've had to make. I think earlier than later, we were one of the barns that closed entirely before the governor here required it.
Yeah.
I made that decision along with my foreman for the safety, to ensure the safety of our staff, because without us, the management of horses won't be to that level. So very early on, we realized that we, the doctors, the community, the scientists, the politicians, don't seem to have a good grip on the nature of this beast, so to speak. So we took the bulls by the horn and shut the farm down earlier than later. We also were already implementing masks and glove use for all personnel very early on, like a week ago we had that.
Yeah. Can you explain to our non-equi members in the group what that means when you say shut the barn down? Because when you say shut the barn down, that doesn't mean that you stop working.
No. In the beginning, as we were getting information about how other countries and other counties and other states were dealing with the quarantine at the different tiers of non-essential workers, I thought that the governor here in New Jersey would shut down the state, meaning if you're not a non-essential worker. Now, for my business, we are a training business. So the care of the animals is in its completion available. So I have a working student, I have a foreman, the horses get fed, they get turned out, they get brushed, they get groomed, and they get their exercise accordingly, whether it's rehabilitative or otherwise. So that level of care is provided for. So in that way, nothing changed. So if people are paying for their training board needs, the horse is still going to get worked, whether the owner's there or not. That's already my promise and my commitment. So that never changed. What changed was the accessibility of owners to be on the property. Now that the government, the state government was very, I can say, mercurial about it. So in the beginning, they said, no, just the essential people to be moving. And that was fine because, my foreman was really concerned that with a lot of people on the property touching things, and being that we don't understand how the virus stays alive outside of the body and the different surfaces, and then of
Sure.
course the cleaning protocols for us, our work got double, because
Sure.
for every person that walks through the barn unmasked, that can leave a trail of potential viral content. So we had to scrub down, bleach down, alcohol wipes, cleaning constantly.
And
And
it's
that
not like just cleaning one bathroom. You have to clean all the latches on the stalls, the lockers that people use to keep their equipment in, the
right.
room that you use to wash your hands, and so
And something
forth.
that people don't even realize is petting your horse. I might be petting your horse, and then you pet your own horse, and what's the trail that's left on your horse's fur
Good point.
is the contents of my little fingers.
Sure.
So very early on, we all of us sat down and said, "Oh my God, to keep the barn, like people coming in and out, the flow as it normally is, would be for me, guilt. I'm a scientist. I'm
Yeah.
trained and I could see the lack of information and the understanding of the nature of the coronavirus enough to know that we really don't have enough information. So I was putting my staff and myself at risk. And I thought at the core of it, that. But the second tier of it is the amount of work we would have to do just to do what? To keep the barn accessible for
Right.
for owners that don't necessarily need to be there because the care is provided.
Yeah. Time you're taking away from the care of the horses.
Exactly. And that's what it boiled down to.
Mm-hmm.
So very early on, what we did was we said, well, just for a week, I right away, before even the government did, said, I'm going to close the barn down, no owners to come for a week. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. Let's figure this out. Let's
Reasonable.
get resettle into this new reality. Let's make sure that my barn staff and I have a protocol around delivering the care and ensuring that everything is sanitized. And then from there, we can see if we can reintegrate or what the state decides. Well, a week hadn't gone by, and already people were, oh, when can I see my horse? When can I do this? And I had to ask uh, some people to leave,
Mm-hmm.
because I absolutely did not want that pressure for myself, even as a business owner, even that at this time we're going to lose money. I thought that was so disrespectful to the core of what we were trying to do, which is make sure that everybody's protected, being that we don't have enough information at this point. So that was the first thing we did. We shut the barn down completely for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter,
Mm-hmm.
maybe about not even a week into the quarantine,
Mm-hmm.
we started getting notices from these news boards, New Jersey Posts that are on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
of already people pushing the Farm Bureau lobby group
Mm-hmm.
to designate barn access as essential, which I thought was
Terrible.
terrible.
Yeah.
It just gave me it was so eye-opening to me, because again, the majority of the people in my vortex are herd mentality. We're here for the long run. They trust my leadership. They absolutely have confidence in that I'm trying to do the best thing for everybody at heart. So to see that being played out on social media was, for me, it was a punch in the heart, actually.
And as a small business owner, you're already going to be stressed financially by the quarantine. And so
Right.
to put these unnecessary stressors on you and expect you to have these intense levels of cleaning is just an additional cost for you in terms of time and money.
And I would like to also emphasize that, while I may be, um, uh, I have to, at the core of it, acknowledge the anxiety level that this provokes for my staff.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is working for me and they have an underlying condition, they're going to be really triggered at the idea that people are coming and going. They're not
Yeah.
going to do their job right. They're going to
Right.
be tentative. And I could have already seen the worry and the concern
Mm-hmm.
that was brewing. So I made that decision early on. Not even a week goes by, and I already saw, I was being emailed notices of amendments that were being revised.
Mm-hmm.
The latest one from the governor's office, I'm sorry, allows for owners to come to the farm, and I believe that was pressure from the Farm Bureau, the lobby group, basically,
Mm-hmm.
allowing access and riding as an essential part of the horse's health. Absolutely, I will go to court as a horse trainer to say that is such a negligent statement to put. I think, first of all, I think anybody that is a professional in this field would never sit and, unless it's somebody who has no background or no credentialing or anything like this, you don't need to sit on an animal to create an opportunity for them to stay well.
Right. Well,
And
not just that, if they do sit on the animal and there's an accident, then
exactly.
that forces them to go to the hospital, which puts undue stress on the infrastructure that we have that can't even handle the patients that are sick with COVID-19 right now.
I thought that decision was so selfish, and the people that would back that up, definitely not my clients.
Yeah.
I felt that was so non-herd mentality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were writing to me because I was very vocal about that on social media and saying, oh, well, you can get hurt ground training. Yes, you can get hurt doing long lining and lunging. Minimize the things that are risky for you if you don't have the skill set for it. But definitely in my 20 plus years of working with horses and people, I can tell you that the catastrophic injuries that people have maintained and sustained have not been when they're lunging, particularly in the way that I teach. It's usually associated with some kind of, especially when I see people trail riding out there without a helmet, you're a burden. You become a burden. So that, for me, right away, I said, well, I issued a statement that was sounded very litigious, but responsible to my barn family, and essentially said, look, I don't agree with opening a barn. It puts an essential burn it. However, the state is requiring me and has designated this as essential. That part I will bring up with the government after this whole thing is over. I will be one of the people really being vocal about what is the criteria and really educating them, going back to credentialing for training, not from the United States, but from Europe, people that have certification bodies that could designate what is essential for a horse's care.
Yeah.
So that's a separate issue as a business owner, because I never want to be in a position like we have now as a business owner, that I have a gun to my head and the pressure that, but luckily my barn family was open. And I think we came up with this compromise. I consulted with my attorney, which I don't like to do.
Of course not.
And I said, because part of the governor's ordinance, Natalie, was that if you deny access to a owner's horse, they can take that horse away. Now, we have contracts in place to protect our businesses. There's responsibilities I have to maintain to owners, and they have responsibilities to me.
Yeah.
One of those responsibilities is, say, a 30-day notice, and it varies, which means that if someone should choose to leave without giving me a 30-day notice, they can, but they're responsible for the fees for that month, or whatever it is, whatever.
Reasonable, completely reasonable.
So the ordinance would allow an owner to pluck their horse. Let's say you as a business owner are trying to do the right thing, are trying to protect staff, are trying to quarantine as appropriately as you can. You're trying to actually maybe oversee the money and whatever lobby issue is, and make that decision as a business owner. But by doing that, you allow then, the government is saying that person has the right to take the horse on a trailer and run off. I think that was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah, it's a shame. And
where before I was probably, Natalie, very, in the previous interview, we had said, what are some other things you like to do? Politics. I'm definitely, after this, going to get involved in politics.
We're having some distortion. Do you hear that too?
No.
Okay. Maybe
Perhaps
that's just
my
on my end. No. Okay. I think that's good. It went away. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
So that really put you in the position where you had to make a difficult choice, not in terms of the people that chose themselves to remove themselves from the barn, but then you had to choose whether or not you wanted to continue working with people that insisted on staying in the barn or coming to visit the barn during these times, and repelling them. Was that a hard decision for you to make? Did you struggle with that at all?
I did a little bit, Natalie, but I think also I like to imagine that I'm a fair person. Mm-hmm. I would like to imagine that business has taught me that there's a compromise. I definitely don't, want to, during a time like this when we have a crisis, mm-hmm. have to worry about the little girl who wants to see her pony and I miss my pony dialogue. That dialogue is not something that I myself personally could have handled. Simultaneous to this, my twin sister, who is a director of a psychiatric ward for a state facility, Creedmoor Hospital in Queens, New York, which is mm-hmm. one of the areas hardest hit, came down with the coronavirus.
Yeah. How's she doing? Is she better now?
She's better now, but I have to tell you that she's a healthy person. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have underlying asthma. She's a bodybuilder. She's very fit. She's very well put together. There's no health issues of any sort. Eats well. I don't. And she said to me, I don't know how someone could handle this. She had to be hospitalized. She had to call 911. And it's been day 16, I think, and she's still spiking a fever.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So how this thing runs its course for a certain person is something that even doctors don't have a handle on.
Right.
So simultaneous to having to navigate, the mercurial nature of the ordinances coming down from the governor, the kind of, when am I going to see my horse dialogues I was having to, on a like 3 times a day basis navigate. I made the decision I don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, that affects your well-being, your own well-being, and your psychological well-being. We were talking about this before we started the interview, about the stress that we feel just from the thought of contracting the virus, or the stress that you feel from potentially spreading it to someone else.
Right. Absolutely, Natalie. And so what I ultimately did the 5 to 7 time slot. I think that what our staff agreed to is by 5 o'clock and certainly to 7 is plenty enough time for people to, on their own terms, go out their masks, mm-hmm. come to the farm, and it would give enough time for then my working student during her night check to spray the door handles and give enough time then for the microbes to die in case anyone touched latches or doors or anything, and give plenty of time for those things to die out before my foreman would have to be there in the morning to turn horses and feed. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of what we agreed on. But ultimately, for me, the decision to cut or even potentially put some people on the list for that boiled down to the fact that on the given days that I'm there, all of us are doing like double the amount of work. Sure. So where an owner would have been there to groom and tack a horse up and all that, right. We're doing that. Yeah. And we're doing that. We're bringing in horses that wouldn't be brought in to check on them. We're bringing in 6 horses, 5 horses a day from the outside, taking blankets off, checking them. Now, I'm usually someone, if people know in my barn, usually I'm the one sitting in a chair giving a lesson. I'm not the person that's grooming or scrubbing or, have people for that. Right. Or owners wish to do that. Sure. So all of us are pitching, all of us are mucking stalls, all of us are picking the manure, all of us are lifting in buckets and doing all the nitty-gritty things that maybe an owner would be doing before to help us out, or other staff would be doing when we'd be doing something else. So now we're doing everything. Yeah. So people don't realize that in order to give all the full care, the person's also putting in more time.
Yeah. So are you working longer hours now? Is everyone working longer hours now?
Everybody is pitching in. My staff is incredible, like really amazing. So everybody's pitching in. Everybody's like, what can we do to make this better? And no horse is shortchanged. That was my goal, is I don't want that the animals would in any way feel or be gypped or deprived of any of the, like, the little details. For example, for us, we'll have the Beamer device. It's a technology that increases blood flow for horses, and it's like a blanket, and they have it for humans, and it allows for relaxation. It's kind of
That's lovely.
yes. So you'll see us running around with the essential oils, with our Beamer technology blankets.
Yeah.
And so even horses that may not have had that because their level of training in the program wouldn't have qualified for them, they're still getting it. So when I have then a person who's wouldn't appreciate that and know that in my business, the way I run my ship, that this is the animals are a priority, and I'm going the extra mile, and then to have to hear that, I have to say, was for me difficult.
Yeah. Well, you really take a whole-bodied approach to your training philosophy. You're not just training the horse mechanically or technically, you're also working on their psychology as well. So they can pick up the stress that you're feeling and that your foreman is feeling and that your working student is feeling, as well as, I would assume, the conflict that if an owner does come to visit the horse during that 5 to 7 period, the conflict of what the owner is feeling versus what you're feeling at the barn.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's why, people don't realize what sentient beings horses are. They can feel from afar your worry. If people come with that, that's why we have a protocol. And one of the things I teach people is how to get to the barn, or kind of prime yourself. So when you get to the barn, a lot of that stuff is a little bit in the background.
Yeah.
Because the horses can feel something's up.
Sure.
So as best as we can, I try to let them know that their owners love them. I try to take photos, and usually I'm really not. But it's another level of work that has to come into my working students tacking this horse up, and I'm working the horse in the arena. We're trying not to cross-fertilize too much. So it's kind of trying to take photos of horses to send to people, at the same time capture a photo when you're actually riding or you're working a horse in whatever way, long lines, but you have to time it so the Chelsea is there. It offers a new level of complexity,
I'm sure,
in order to ensure that people do get to see their horses. But I have to say, for me, Natalie, right now, a kind of the weeding of sorts has made me really more so appreciate the people that are here, like the ones that have stayed and have been supportive and can tolerate the long periods of silence about what's going on.
Yes.
What's going on at the barn. Well, gosh, do you have 5 hours? I can sit you down and explain the details that people might not know. At the same time, there are two peripheral worries as a business owner for me that linger. It's like the grim reaper in the room, the elephant in the room. The first one is, of course, this, as psychologists are now writing about in Psychology Today. There's an article. There's been some articles in the New York Times. There have been some psychologists featured about this. And maybe you feel it too, Natalie. We're both in about the same age group, but there's this invisible monster, like, hiding in the closet, and that is, at any point, we too don't know if we or our immediate loved ones might succumb and fall ill to this. And will they die? Maybe not. But as my sister said to me, she said, Maria, you don't want to get this. You definitely don't want to get this. So you're kind of going through your day with this. We don't have the antibodies. Most of us probably don't. Going through the day with this kind of, overlaying anxiety that, oh my God, am I going to get ill? Am I going to get a phone call tomorrow that my parents are ill, that my husband is ill? It's there. It's like right. I feel like undigested food. It's like sitting right there. It's not traveled down to the stomach yet.
Yeah,
so
that's true. In the beginning of March, I was at a conference in New York City. And this was right when we really started to become aware that we were right at the heart of it, the Northeast corridor here. We were right at the heart of it. And so I know when I was at the conference, my kids' school closed for, I think it was half a day or maybe even a whole day. But then they went right back to school. While I was at the conference, I was worried because I was coming into contact with people from all over the world and spending time with them in a close proximity. And here I am in New York City going to visit my sister's brand new baby, holding my sister's baby, standing next to my mother who's in her 70s, going out to dinner with my son and sharing food with him, all the while feeling this great amount of anxiety that maybe I had contracted the disease and I was passing it along to them. So personally, I started my quarantine as soon as I got back from New York City because I was just overcome by that sense of guilt. So yes, I agree.
And even with the quarantine, since then, we've probably, all of us, stepped out to the supermarket, touched something. We don't know. So
Right.
even though they tell us quarantine and you think you don't have it, we just don't know enough yet about all this to really feel confident and just going through the day and not getting infected or infecting someone.
Yeah.
So I kind of carry on through my day as if I'm already infected. That's how I operate at the barn.
Yeah.
And so that's one level of anxiety, that kind of the immediate, like this visceral health thing, like, oh my goodness, like I'm a sitting duck waiting at any moment that the telephone's going to ring and it's going to be my sister crying that she has to get rushed to 911 or my mother getting ill. So the second one, of course, is the business.
Yeah.
And, I fought very hard and I literally have fought. I mean, I've had in business many, many disappointments, partnership that's dissolved, clients that have left, financial hurdles to overcome, beloved animals that go away unexpectedly. So there's a lot of fight that's allowed me to sit here and be in business. I survived the recession. I survived divorces. I survived, all those things. And yet, kind of like the last Mohicans, I'm here. I will fight to make sure that I can be here for the people that I serve. And that's something that, as a result of this COVID-19, I call it the Corona era, Corona era.
Yeah.
Literally the era of Corona.
Before and after.
The coronavirus era.
BCAC.
BCAC. It became much more, for me, a visceral idea that I serve people. Like I literally feel that in being in business for me is much more than a transaction. It's actually building relationships that matter to me.
Absolutely.
And for the people that come to me for a reason or a season, not a lifetime, a reason, season, or a lifetime. The people that come to me for a reason or a season, I might have or end up having what we call transactional encounters. So I provide a service. But I would prefer to be of service to people and create relational experiences.
Yes. So and that's when it's okay to turn away the people that don't necessarily fit that vision that you have for your life and your business.
Well, what I have done in the past is I might recognize that this is a transactional individual, and for whatever their reason too, Natalie, it's a funny thing. People emotionally, spiritually are at different levels. But once I'm able to designate that that's a transaction, I'll do my best to give them a tool that they might need, because at the end of the day, I want that, even if it's not a relational experience, that person can apply something I'm teaching that will benefit the horse.
That's great.
So but I'm very clear, I am aware, I'm not under any pretenses that this is a relational experience. And that has helped me in business too, much more so now. What flooded into my consciousness the other day, and sitting like as I do, is a conversation I had with another horse trainer who I happen to have been living with a while back, who in having dinner and dialoguing around business, she said to me one day, Maria, who do you think you are? You are a, how did you put it?
A hired hand.
You are a hired hand. That's right.
Yeah.
You are a hired hand. And, I'm much more than a hired hand. I don't want to pretend that it's not all about me, but people come to me, I hope, because they respect and value potentially what I have to offer. So, and I serve people. My natural instinct in all of this too, Natalie, as you know, one of the things I was just before the Corona era came through was about to launch an online course that I've been working with for a while.
Yeah.
And just as all this came out, I had to sit back and rewrite and rethink and right away mobilize to say, oh my God, my equi family around the world this is what we're dealing with now. What can I give them now that can help them? How can I be there for people? How can I serve you? Which I think is a very different place than being a hired hand. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, and I think that something you and I have talked about too before, Natalie, is the idea that in business, being that I'm here to serve you, there has to be some level of respect and at least a little bit of openness to hear out what a person like myself, who maybe has experience in the horse industry for X amount of years, coupled with the experiences out of the horse world that have really been integral for me.
I agree. Absolutely. I think it's important that people understand the value that you have to bring to the table. We all want that as human beings. We want our value to be understood and felt and recognized. I know we talked about this before as well. I know that in my world as a photographer, when I do have clients that value me and respect me, I feel it. And so in turn, the work, not intentionally in any way whatsoever, but in turn, the work reflects that because you feel the trust that those clients have in you. But when you have someone that's just paying you in the photography world to be an expensive button pusher, you don't feel like you can necessarily serve them the way they need to be served. Maybe they're not allowing you to serve them the way they need to be served. Maybe they're dictating every step of the process to you rather than letting go and understanding that you have the experience and the knowledge to carry them forward. So I agree with you.
Right, and but I mean, I know too, Natalie, that exists in every industry, and it just became even more so evident for me now that at the end of the day, I'm not a hired hand. I really, truly want to serve people. What drew me to in the world of psychology is a deep desire to understand people so that I can serve them better in all that it entails. And this has been very eye-opening too for me about why, for example, in the past, certain people didn't quite do well with what I had to offer. And I realized that in what I do in particular, it's again a relational versus transaction, but it's also about being or allowing yourself to be a herd member. Now, culturally, I'm Greek, so we are coming from a collectivistic culture. Your happiness, your wellness matters to me. If you don't have food, I'll be there. So I annoy the hell out of people when I keep offering food or, can I get you anything? Can I get you anything? It's just how we are raised culturally. So the idea of a herd for me is not foreign. It's pretty much how it's been much of my life. But what I saw or I see in this Corona era has been that oftentimes people's immediate needs, which for me translates to like no herd mentality, overrides that of the greater good. And there are times, and I think horses do a great job teaching us about that, the greater good, how to operate in a herd, how they all kind of know their place during a certain time, particularly a crisis when something's happening in the horse world, in their field, for example, and there's a threat or perceived threat, how they operate in that. Shows us a lot. It's very illuminating. For me as a business owner, no more best than this time to really to really to be able to come to terms with the idea of how can I weed out, or no, not weed out, but how can I vet
Mm-hmm.
the type of client that already values herd mentality,
Yeah.
who already is coming open-minded, who
Mm-hmm.
already is maybe 2 tiers down with their ego,
Mm-hmm.
to allow them to be open to what I have to teach. Because I realized that the times that it didn't work with certain people is because just that they didn't come as a herd member.
Yeah.
It was what I want, and I want to learn this, and I want to do it this way, and so how do I vet for that? How do I reorganize my business to speak to that? How do I protect my business? Because I want to be here for the next 20 plus years.
Sure.
I want to be able to, I've survived all these other things. How can I survive this now? And it really boils down to having the people in my vortex that trust what I do, value what I do, and willing to stay the course till we get to the other side together.
Yeah.
And that's more and more what I already appreciate, that I have those people.
Sure.
And how can I attract more of those people?
So, what are some strategies that you're using to attract those people? So now most of your efforts have moved online, correct? During COVID-19 here.
Yes.
So you're running ads to your course, to your online course. Can you tell me a little bit about the creative that you've been using that attracts those people, that vets the people that you want to work with?
Right. So the thing that Natalie, because of COVID, there's a lot of the usual things, like maybe visiting somewhere or had 2 clinics cancel. Usually in the past, that's how people, once they come to our farm, once they meet me, once we have a physical connection,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, or they see what it is that we do with the horses, their horse in particular, if they've signed up for a clinic, usually that's one way that people want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
It either resonates with them.
Yeah.
Literally, we'll be in the same room and they'll say, I may not know you. I may not even like you, lady, but what you're saying resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that pre-COVID-19 era
Mm-hmm.
would have happened physically,
Mm-hmm.
in live.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to move, yes, a lot of this offline. It just so happened that we were already preparing this online marketing for the online course that I had, which
Yeah.
is even interesting
Good
timing.
timing.
Yeah, because it's information that, gosh, we packaged that 2 years ago, but it's so relevant to what's happening now. So it's like tools that you can use in and out of horses. Because the idea for me always has been, how do you develop your humanship so that you can be better with your horse? And it ultimately, any great horseman, any great person, it always boils down to how can we get better with each other?
Yeah.
When people think of, say, Buck Brannaman, or these people might be introverts, but they have a way with people. And I'm from a line in my paternal side that are animal, I don't know, in Greece, we have sheep herders and agricultural people. So we're known, this paternal line, for communication of animals, like the goats and the sheep and the mules. They have a certain way. My father, my grandfather, his great-grandfather have a way with animals, but they also had a way with people. They just had a way with people. So a lot of the course content, which we serendipitously did 2 years ago, is very relevant to today. So what I did was this strategy that I think initially, when we had put together, well, because I really don't know anything about Facebook ads and all that you guys do all that. You're the pro about that. But what I thought was, well, I would like to be able to share things that, whether someone bought my content or not, that I, especially during this time, contributed, gave them a tool, gave them something to think about. If I spoke about something and for a split second, it hit them or inspired them or gave them hope or it gave them peace for 1 minute,
Yeah.
then I've done my job.
I love
For
that.
the initial strategy was just market the online course, but I think we had to sit back and rethink it because it's just not me. And I said, well, what I'd like to do, similar to what I do in my business, especially now, much more now than I did before, is vet the person that will appreciate the content. Because
Sorry.
I
My
don't want
barn
to.
here.
Oh, the dog. Oh
Sorry.
no, doggy, doggy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
sweetheart.
Apollo. Hey, buddy. There's someone walking by. I'm sorry. He'll stop in a second.
You're doing a great job. Good doggy. Good job.
So, I want to go back to what we were talking about before, where you said, you're the pro, you know how to do Facebook ads. But I think that it's important when we're working together with clients that we also listen to our clients' native instincts on how to speak to their own clients, because you know who your client is, how your client expects to be addressed and what they expect to hear from you. So I know you went through a lot of work repackaging the messaging around
Right.
your product.
By the way, Natalie, just to be talk about transparency, your audio is like drifted.
Oh, thank you for telling me. Can you hear me?
Something happened where it just kind of, I lost you like a zephyr.
Okay. It could have been my internet. We've been having issues with the weather today.
Oh,
And
okay.
our internet went down. So I do have unstable connection every now and then. Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay. It's just the volume. It's just
Oh.
that it sounds like you're just in a tunnel. That's all.
Oh, is that
Now you're better. Now you're
Okay.
better.
Thank you for telling me.
You're
Did
welcome.
you hear everything I said?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I did before, but it was
Okay.
like far off.
Thank you for telling me.
You're welcome. The thing that I realized, because I'm not, you guys do this Facebook ads, but what I had said was, look, I'm okay that I'm not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I can be a reason, a season, or a lifetime. That's okay. But, the last thing I want to do, and I believe it hurts my business, is when someone buys something from me with a certain expectation and it's not met. Now, it's unrealistic for me to promise something and completely deliver. I recognize that too. But I wanted to vet people that would resonate most for, because they will value it more. And those are the people that potentially could join my equine family, not just an online course, but perhaps they can join me live when we're past the coronavirus and moving into some new level of reality where we can meet physically. That person, I may want to meet them. I might want to have them in my vortex, being that I'm limited now with that. So what we did was we created a campaign pulling in from content that I already had, that what I've seen over the years, people will view, say, a particular video that I have that I developed years back. One of those videos is one that got selected for the Equus Film Festival as a short film. And the person will see that film, and it's meant to elicit or evoke some semblance. It should hit you.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't hit you somewhere, your stomach, your heart, that it's likely that the rest of what I have to say is not going to resonate either.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does this have to do with horses? People are like, well, that was everything. If I'm where I am and I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, there's a reason for it.
That's right.
Trust me. If you can't, and it doesn't, somebody could see the same video and it not move them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Could I be helpful to them? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be a transaction. It's not going to be a relationship. And ultimately, the best of me for someone's horse is in a relational capacity. So what we did was use content that vetted people, that actually people would see this, like it, and we would invite those people to join our Facebook, the Molecular Equitation Facebook, and be part of that family. And therefore we can then, that person's likely to appreciate anything else that comes down the pipeline. So that's one way that we did that. A lot of people from that one video that we vetted actually signed up for my newsletter, which is even great. It's even better
Yes.
because I went on an assaultive campaign from a psychology, even as a life coach,
Hmm.
put on my kind of psychology life coach hat and be able to, even in my newsletters, reach out on that human level and say, hey guys, these are some things that might be helpful, and without being too droll, so to speak, and
Yeah.
without catastrophizing and politicizing anything, is just here is some basic things that might resonate with you. I can't tell you how many people have shared, have reached out, emailed to me, thank you, this is helpful. Now, did they buy anything? No, but they have a relationship with me.
And
And
not
I,
just that, you're building your list. So
yes,
this is traffic that you own versus traffic that you borrow. Whereas when you're on Facebook, the people that are liking your page or involved in your group is really traffic that you're borrowing. You don't own that traffic. You can't market directly to them. If Facebook were to go down tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to reach them. But since
right.
you have these people on your email list, you can continue to market them to them in different ways.
Exactly. So, and because they signed up willingly,
Hmm.
the idea is that the content that I have to share will be valuable to them,
Yes.
and that's important to me. I mean, we were talking about respect and getting us. I have, in order for me to continue and go on,
Mhm.
I have to feel on some level, for me personally, that I'm helping people,
Of course.
that I'm doing something that elevates this a little bit more than just a writing lesson. And that's important for me because I think to stay in business, with all its challenges, can lead to a lot of burnout.
Hmm.
Particularly, I think I know myself enough to say that I'm like one of those sensitive, empathic people. Things do really sit with me for a while. I feel things
Hmm.
very deeply. And so, in order to honor that, I've felt that the more I can bring into my vortex people, I'll give you an example. In the past, when I've worked with other publicists and we've put materials out, always I would have some trolls, people
Hmm.
that would sit and write negative. I mean, people that don't know me, or if they pretend to know me, things about the content that I was putting out
Yeah.
that were so, I mean, just off, negative, vicious.
Yeah. Keyboard
And
warriors.
yeah, I mean, back, they probably never wrote in their life, sitting on their couch, and they can attack and belittle people along the way. And there's, by the way, and I'm open to feedback. So
Yeah.
if there's something that's offensive in a photo or incorrect or whatever people have to say, I think there's a way to do that. And I certainly have engaged people along those lines and be able to kind of have a healthy banter
Hmm.
about what about the picture offends, and then we can have kind of this healthy, like, well, people are doing it this way, and here's some information that you can read about that. And people, then we've actually built relationships with people that really didn't know,
Right.
had no idea, but as a result of having put that out there and us having a dialogue, I learned a little bit about where they got their information, and I was able to deliver some concrete information for them to continue on their journey.
That was an opportunity for you.
Yes, and whether they became a client or not, the transaction was respectful, even though we have our differences. Well, a lot of the early content that I was putting out, that was with maybe without vetting or filtering, seemed to draw a lot of these trolls, and so that certainly took me out of the online presence. I
Mm.
actually retreated back to my little cave,
Yeah.
into my little hole, and kind of, how to say, uh, declared myself off of that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hurtful. And you're
Yeah.
already feeling that self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And to hear someone say that or see someone write something just flat out mean like that can really push you back into the cave and make you retreat and rethink whether or not what you're offering is of value to other people.
Yeah, I mean, see, for me, it's not so much do I feel it's a value or say more of like an imposter feeling,
Hmm.
but what was resonating with me is that here I am putting myself in a very public place when deep down I'm a very one-on-one personal
I
person.
see.
So this kind of like Pollyannish for marketing, like it's almost like
It
my
was a
authentic.
it was like a validation that you should stay offline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also the fraud piece was more of like, this is not my suit.
Yeah.
I'm
I
wearing like
understand.
a dress that just is not me.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make that commercialized, and I realized that I'm not commercialized. I'm not for everybody. I'm not a cookie cutter. I'm
Yeah.
not a cookie cutter in my training.
Mm-hmm.
You see me day to day walking around. I don't look like anything. Most people, when they come to the barn and see me, they kind of chuckle. They're like, I didn't expect that you look like this, or wow, that's kind of interesting that you work in this way. So no, there's nothing cookie cutter about me. So I had to like realize that. And in reintroducing myself online, I learned from that and said, you know what? Let's vet who comes through, because those trolls, those negative people do seem to also impact how other people perceive what I think is high-end, great quality, with good intention information. And those people are blocking that good content, good intention, great for the horse place that I'm trying to do good on this planet. I'm trying to do good at the core of it.
But in
Yes, you
a
have.
way, they helped you too, right? Because they helped
Yes.
you understand that even though this wasn't your suit, this wasn't the type of attire you would normally wear or want to wear, that you have to be in this online world, in this era especially. And
Yes.
but now it's okay, it's okay that you're not for everyone. It's okay that you're not commercial. You don't need to attract everyone. You just need a certain few people in your barn, and that's all really, essentially, figuratively.
And it's like this too, Natalie. It's exactly as you say it. I realized that they did me a huge favor.
Mm-hmm.
That whole experience was, at the time I didn't see it that way, but and I wish I did, because I think the people around me were very good professionals and were trying to tell me that, but they were trying to tell me that, and I just wasn't feeling it.
That's all
But
right, it wasn't the right time.
it was the right time, and I do appreciate them for trying to educate me around
Mm-hmm.
that, and I definitely give thanks to the very trolls and to the very vicious people out there um, that help me understand myself a lot better, and as a result can reintroduce my online presence in a much more kind of softer way.
Yeah. So in a way, this is an opportunity, that this quarantine, social distancing experience that we're all living through right now for your business, because it's an opportunity for you to really rethink your business and think about how you want all of the pieces to fall together moving forward.
Yes, absolutely, Natalie. So it's a lot of for me, my takeaways are the vetting process. People come, they're looking for service, but I'm also interviewing them,
Yeah.
and really being able to fine tune
Mhm.
the level of expectation, and it could be unconscious. Person might not even know it. So whoever comes to my door, I'm, I think, a little bit better or precise about. And of course, in statistics, there's always the zero point 0.5 error margin. Um, there's always surprises to it, but at least I can honor the fine tuning of a process that allows me to see how I can help the person at what level, so it preserves my dignity and also my burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important, especially in your industry, because the weather itself, I know, is really hard on your body. So
Yeah.
when you're also contending with the psychological aspect of it, there's a lot of work that you need to do to push through those feelings physically and emotionally to continue doing the work and serving your humans and your animals.
Yes. Yes, Natalie, that's absolutely right. And of course, then the whole idea of, you're not a hired hand,
Mhm.
and how can I serve you?
Mhm.
And, really attracting the people that want me to serve them.
Mhm.
I am at your service. I used to be a flight attendant. One of the best experiences, just not to take you aside,
Yeah,
uh,
no.
I was like this kind of like pseudo wealthy, kind of spoiled, I have to say, kid when I was young. Our family had some money, so I didn't really have to clean or do anything like that.
Yeah.
So, in fact, my father earlier on had said, no daughter of mine will work. And it was kind of like this. You got educated so that you can be someone's wife and raise children and all this. So,
Well, that's also very cultural as well, right?
yes. Well, not so much anymore, but definitely when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, one of the jobs I took um, was a flight attendant when I was just out of college, one of my first jobs, and something that my family, of course, was horrified. My twin sister and I, we got hired like Trump, and then it became
Oh,
U.S.
geez.
shuttle. And one of the things one of the best, most valuable experiences of my life on so many levels. But one of the things that I learned how to do when I was a flight attendant was to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And to really be there of service. It was very humbling for me because, of course, you were treated many times not in the best way. And I think realizing that about people, and it was very humbling for me. So sometimes you have to put your ego aside and just serve, be there, be available for people. So that's something that I definitely, in this coronavirus era, it just got resurrected. Like, I am here to serve people. How can I do that? Um, and of course, the transaction versus the relational piece of it, and really reflecting, having this time has allowed me to reflect on the connections I've had that didn't work out at the moment and why, and coming down and boiling down to some key common points, some of which we talked about.
Yeah.
But those are like the takeaways so far for me.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that with us. So I have a random question for you. So do you ever find that when owners come visit their horses, that the horses act out afterwards, and, and something similar to when kids go to visit parents are divorced and the kid goes to visit, one parent comes back to the first parent, or, where they typically live with, they have to untrain the kid. Does that happen with the horses?
That's so funny. Yeah, actually, owners were asking me about this. Since we did the 5 to 7 o'clock hour slot that people can be available, we haven't really had that many people come.
Oh,
I think, yeah, we have an older constituency. I want to make that available to people, but it's not something that. But generally speaking, yes, that's why people are in training, and people appreciate the structure of a training program, because this allows, or there's at least a filter to, because I make people very aware of themselves in a way that they wouldn't normally, and therefore the horse doesn't take the bullet for it.
Yeah.
Horses, because of humans, can develop, I cannot empirically prove it, but it's in many ways no different than being in a relationship with someone that, day by day, whether you're putting them in the wrong tack, like they're restricted and they're moving wrong, or your energy can be so toxic that can develop ulcers. They're a lot more emotional than people realize, and their enteric system is acid line throughout, so it's into the small and large intestine. The gut is a very reactive system. When they say hits you in the gut, literally. So they have a lot more complicated gut than us. So yes, I think that, but many of the people that are here, but in my immediate family, farm family, they've been with me for a while to know how to filter that out. However, I have realized that some of the horses in the beginning seem really sad. They have their own schedules, their rituals, the owner comes in the sense.
Sure.
So as we, the staff, geared towards creating a new ritual for the horses, bringing them in, we have now a new system. It took them like maybe a good 3 days until they were like smiling at the gate, because in the beginning it was like,
they probably felt abandoned too, right? They were confused.
I don't know. I don't say people say that. I don't say abandoned. It's just confused, because there's a certain that they are very aware of the flow. Like there's they have a sense that this person comes, they take them out of the owner, and then they give them food, and then they get groomed by that person. So there's habitual patterns. So
Got it.
they seem like more like, they were like quiz, like, what are you doing here? And then I put the bride on, they would like, well, why are you here? Because usually I'm not the person to be taken in.
I
So
see.
I noticed that. And then by day 3, they actually, in this one field that we take them out, they would line up according to how we bring them in. So they already had figured it out.
I
And
see. I thought you meant in the beginning when a horse first comes to your farm, but you meant in the beginning of the quarantine.
the beginning of the quarantine,
I
where
see.
there were now limitations to owners
I
coming.
see. I
So
see.
in the beginning, they kind of like were like, why are you here? And now they line up, because we bring them, the ones that are
They
outside.
are like children.
Yes, and the ones that have a stall that are outside during the day, but they come during the evening, they would usually get, say, their exercise, their work early in the day. Now they're in the end of the day, so they were perplexed, like, why? Like, I have a horse that I usually work with at 10 in the morning. Now he's getting up to 3. So it was like, they have their own rhythms that we had to kind of break. So that we noticed. And we also noticed that some horses, where they would be more anxious, or they would have kind of a stereotypic behavior, being with the owner, or head tossing, or this neurotic mouth thing. We noticed that because it's just Chelsea, the young woman who works with me, and myself handling them, we noticed that just is not there. It's the most, it's darndest thing. I didn't notice it. My working student noticed it. She was like, God, we put the bridle, the horse was like very peaceful, relaxed, or there was no nipping, was our energy were much more, I mean, I've been doing this for many years, so I'm very mindful of that. But without the extra layer of people and their worry, you start to see how the horse can take that on.
Yeah.
So it was really, really interesting. So I haven't
Fascinating.
You see a lot of that stereotypy thing kind of go away very quickly. It was that we've noticed. I think that the expression of the horses, I try to send pictures to owners because I hope that what they see in the pictures is a little bit of the joy.
I'm sure.
It's, I think, hard on everybody. I mean, I'm sure the horses feel my heaviness. I mean, I do my best, but I'm human, and we do the best to be, kind of cheerful. We have our special music that we put with the 432 hertz. We have this whole system to, strip our toxicity, so to speak.
That's great.
But of course they feel it.
So you also have a nonprofit, and your horse Apple Delish, right? She's one of your nonprofit horses. So I know she had a big cribbing problem, which means that she was chewing on the barn, on the wood, right? On the stall. But did that change during the quarantine for her?
Yeah, that too has been very, very interesting. So, kind of anecdotally, we track the intensity and then when the cribbing will happen, because the objective of it being 0 is, I think, not very realistic. But she's on a series of supplements to address what we feel is ulcers, high gut ulcers in particular. So we started her on that 2 months ago, so that's also a help. But what I've also noticed is we've noticed that the cribbing is less. And I'm not sure if it's because there's less of a flow. Usually around the hours that she's inside, people would be coming back and forth, distracted. But we've noticed that cribbing is less. But I can't really say if it's, because of that, because she's also on this supplementation that we know has helped in the past. In fact, I'm going to just keep her on it for the year. But we've also been interacting with her a lot more, like all the horses. So what people, can imagine, you have 17 horses, 18 before, and every day it's like you want to tell them, don't worry, Mom didn't ban, she's right here. And I tell my people, please, from far away, please just fill your heart with the feeling of gratitude for them, of love, and trust that at least a smidgen of it gets communicated. Because I feel like I'm running around telling the kids, don't worry, guys, you're okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. I promise you. You know, just making sure that they feel the love and they feel the joy and that. So I don't know if, because we're working a lot to make sure that the whole barn is peaceful, that also impacts her. But yeah, we have noticed that it's less. In the beginning, though, I have to say, probably the first 4 days, because I think all the horses were more edgy, a little bit when you're bringing them in, a little bit prancy, looky, and Apple Delish was a little bit, we noticed that during feeding time, she was taking a bite and cribbing more. It was like a 3 or 4 day period. And I think what she most certainly could have felt at the time too was for us as a crew, trying to figure out what the new regimen is, what the new schedule is, how are we going to do this, and especially creating a path for what if one of us gets sick. So who's going to do what when I get sick? Who's going to take over this task when she gets sick? What if Pedro gets sick? Who's a backup for that? And I think that level of we were like, whoa, what do we do? Where do we go? What happens? That they kind of were like, oh shit,
sure.
They don't know what's going to happen. There was a little bit of that.
They don't know what's going to happen to us.
So I think I felt that right away, and I said, oh my God, it's just like having a child and you having, talking about finances in front of the kids, and you're worrying, and then you see them kind of worrying, and right away I was like, well, we got to change. Okay, let's mobilize. Part of our task is to keep the cheer here for the horses, and if we can't keep it, what can we do? So, for example, Chelsea has these little Tibetan bells that she
that's great.
Pulls all that negativity away. We have a lot of the music and the essential oils to try to even out and neutralize some of that, because the last thing I want to do is that you could feel it. When you're working with them day in and out, you can feel their worry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might not put a dialogue on it, captions of any sort, but you can feel it, and it's a feeling of there's either love or fear, and right now they're in a place of fear. So how can I move them into love?
Sure.
And that I'm very grateful for my crew, because we all of us appreciate that, understand that, deep down value that. So we all, whether it was my foreman who would sing a little cheer, bringing him in and out, even though I know he's worried about his family and everything, I could see that he was really doing everything he could to kind of keep positive. And part of my job too is to motivate the troops. I that's another element of business people don't realize sometimes. You have to make sure. I mean, I have to have all the information I can. So I'm sitting there trying to read some of the journals that are coming out about the coronavirus to get informed. Really reviewing all the different political conversations and that all the decision making from state to state that might perhaps guide me, and ultimately recognizing that it's my business and that my job is to make sure as best I can that we can all be safe and come out of this and return back to where we left off to some extent with the goals that we have with our horses.
Which leads me to my next question. Will this change your business once the quarantine is lifted? How will it change your business? Have you had an opportunity to process that?
Yeah, I have, Natalie. I have. I definitely will have. There are some things that, as a business, I feel that I should make without being. I think definitely I will get involved politically, whether it's the Farm Bureau, local government, to be able to champion and protect people like me. I felt really bullied at a time when I shouldn't have. I should have.
By people who don't understand the industry.
No.
Yeah.
And I felt really bullied by. I mean, in reading some of the social media. I actually now I'm what they call I'm a productive social media person, because I have a little file. People that post things just like if you go for a job, one of the things your possible future employer will do is go on social media and review and see, what are you posting?
Yes.
Well, that's something I'm going to be doing. I didn't do
Great.
before. And one of the things I do now is, as we are going through this Corona era period, and I see the changing and the different debates around writing or not, or this and that, I'm screenshotting how people are conversing.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is speaking in such a way that it punches me in the heart or in the stomach, it punches me in the stomach, and I feel viscerally this is disrespectful or ill-guided, but this person took the time to write an ill-guided attack on someone else, I take a screenshot of it. So if that person were to knock on my door for anything,
Mm-hmm.
I know in which category to put them. I never had to do that before. I never did that.
Interesting. Well, it's also good to use as an example. Perhaps you can incorporate that into your rules and regulations.
And that's another thing. Once I think we move back to some less quarantine and all this, I will be sitting with an attorney and rewriting my boarding contract. There's a couple of things definitely that I want to have. Not for the people I'm with here now. These are wonderful. These are exceptional people.
Of course.
I said, these are not the exception. The people that are in my barn family, both my staff and the people that are, I can't even say clients. These are exceptional people. I want more exceptional people.
Yes, of course.
And when I'm in a situation like that, in case I don't have an exceptional person, I would like to have parameters to protect my business in that. And so rethinking the boarding contract, training board contract, something that will be for me at the forefront, for sure.
I think that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of this information with us. I'm really grateful to you. I know it's such a hard time for so many of us, and it's important for all of us to come together and share our insights and our experiences so that we can help each other grow as human beings and as business owners, particularly in this.
Not to cut you off, Natalie, what you just said is the single most important thing of this talk.
Yeah.
We have to come together as human beings. And in my business, if you have to care about the other human being if you really want to be an exceptional horseman. But this is the time to really look beyond yourself.
That's right.
And even if I have to give trade secrets or even be transparent about my business's lack or thereof, if it's going to help somebody, I will do it.
Yes, absolutely. Now is the time, because there are so many of us that feel like we're alone and don't know where to turn, particularly now that we are socially distancing, and in the service-based industry, we're accustomed to being face-to-face with people. So there's a little bit of withdrawal for us, I suppose, even though a lot of us, personally, I think I'm an extroverted introvert. I need those periods of time where I can hide out, and I call it my artist studio. I need to go in my artist studio and put my beret on and act like no one can talk to me. But I need that interaction as well. And since we're not able to get it face to face right now, it's important that we find the new way to come together online and share these experiences, because we're not alone. We're all feeling the stress and the pain and the hardship. And we need to talk to each other and give each other our ideas and our solutions so that we can either offer one another advice or we can learn something from one another that helps us grow our businesses in a different way.
Absolutely. And I will continue too, Natalie, as this kind of evolves in this period, that, I will touch base with you, and if there's something that I've noticed that's helpful or insights in my own business. I mean, we're not in the same business, but there's commonalities. And I found myself doing in this period things to help other people's businesses. So, for example, I have a friend who catered our winter event, and I sent a memo out to everyone saying, hey, if you really love that food, which was great, it was fantastic, that they are catered, they are having pickup, so you can drive and pick up your food and everything. And if you need landscaping, I have so-and-so who's still working, and they'll be able to wear masks and gloves and be kind of socially appropriate here, but they need your business. So just help, if you know someone that has a business that needs the business, let people know about it. Just like
Agreed.
if there's people I'm interfacing with, I'll let them know about you, and I let them know.
Yeah.
These are things that
Same.
we can do to help each other. And it's important. This is important. People talk about the economy and say, Maria, how can you, you're all about the horses and, and you're depriving people of this and that. And I said, well, I'm a business owner. I will support business. We need to think about how to mobilize, but hey, we can do it in ways that doesn't necessarily compromise anybody or tax the health system.
Absolutely. I agree.
Supporting each other, even that if I have a little bit of money, I can loan it to a friend who's have a small business, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's being proactive about our economy. And so
Yeah,
there's a
I
lot of
agree.
creative ways.
I agree. And I'd like to end on the note of your nonprofit. So Apple Delish is available for adoption, correct?
Yes, she is.
Awesome. So
Yes,
can you tell our members how they can inquire about adopting her if they're interested and how the process works?
usually what I tell people, just call me. Call
Okay,
me and
great.
I'll just ask a series of questions to see if if you're a good candidate for her. Because
Great.
I would love to see her in a long-term situation. I would love to see her stay with us. And
Yes.
because when you adopt a horse from Friends for Pegasus,
Uh-huh.
when you adopt a horse from us, we, as part of the adoption, will give 1 year free training for people.
That's incredible.
That's considerable. That's a lot of
Yes.
money. People pay me a lot of money for that. So
Yes.
if they stay with us for a year and commit to that, the idea is that by committing to that, then they can have that relationship. If there's any hiccups, we can at least address them
Of
before
course.
Apple goes to another home and it becomes an issue.
Yeah, that's
Trying to
wonderful.
be responsible about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wonderful. She's a beautiful horse, and I
Yes.
hope someone chooses to bring her into their family soon. I know she'll be happy when she finds
Thank you
her
for that.
owner. Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you for that shout out, Natalie.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Well, and thank you so much again. I look forward to staying in touch. Please do come back again. Keep us posted on the changes that are happening in your business, what's working, what's not working. And I would love to see you again soon.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant, Natalie.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.